Here is my audience. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. If you had the choice to end your own life, if you knew you were going to die, what would you do? This can be a very difficult question to ask because not many of us have ever had to have been faced with a question like that before. There are people who have been faced with this question now. If someone is suffering immensely and there is no chance of survival, it should be their choice to spend the time they want the way they want. Doctor-assisted suicide should be legal. There are many reasons one can argue for doctor-assisted suicide. I'm going to talk about a few of them today. The first main point is that doctor-assisted suicide is conditional. My second main point is that doctor-assisted suicide allows patients to die with dignity. And my third main point is that doctor-assisted suicide is a last resort option. Doctor-assisted suicide is a choice that only people with a terminal illness have. My first main point is that doctor-assisted suicide is conditional. Dr. Dimitra Pappas, who is an expert in the history of medicine, says that it was cancer that started the debate of doctor-assisted suicide in the early 1900s. There are many terminal illnesses that come up when thinking about doctor-assisted suicide, but cancer is by far the one that comes up the most. There are currently 4 states that have legalized doctor-assisted suicide. They are Oregon, Vermont, Montana, and Washington. In all of these states, you must have a terminal illness to be even considered for doctor-assisted suicide. There is a huge difference between doctor-assisted suicide and suicide in general. Another doctor, Dr. Nicola Biller, says that patients who are considering doctor-assisted suicide view death as a relief. And only a small fraction of those who consider doctor-assisted suicide actually go through with it. There are many safeguards and screenings that must be applied before you can even go through with doctor-assisted suicide. This helps narrow down patients who actually are qualified for doctor-assisted suicide. My second main point, or as I stated in my first main point, doctor-assisted suicide is conditional. Proper screenings and safeguards must be put into place, and doctors and patients must look at all the information to make the best possible decision. My second main point is that doctor-assisted suicide allows patients to die with dignity. Dr. Timothy Quill, who is a physician that has used doctor-assisted suicide in the past, has released some of his cases to the public. In one case, he talked about a person who was suffering from cancer, and she said that she was scared to die, but she was even more terrified of living on earth and suffering any longer. It wasn't a quick decision that she came to. She talked about it with her family and friends, and finally came to the decision that she didn't want to suffer any longer. She decided to leave her family with peace and dignity. I've done quite a bit of research on other cases of doctor-assisted suicide, and the one thing that all of them have in common is all the patients are suffering immensely. In most cases, patients have lived with the disease for a while and before they go through with it. The people who go through with doctor-assisted suicide are not giving up, but rather being relieved of their pain and suffering that they have lived with during their disease. So I argued in my second main point that doctor-assisted suicide should be legal because it allows patients to die with dignity. My third main point is that doctor-assisted suicide is a last resort option. Dr. Dan Brock talks about when doctor-assisted suicide is morally acceptable, because patients are essentially ending their own life with the help of doctors. And no one wants to have to end a life in general. Another doctor named Arthur Kaplan stated that doctor-assisted suicide is not an overnight process, and that patients must think on it, reflect on it, talk with other people about it, and make sure it is an authentic choice. As I argued in my third main point, doctor-assisted suicide is a last case decision because it is the last decision you will ever make in your life, but it can offer patients peace. So in conclusion, it's hard to firmly support or oppose doctor-assisted suicide because it's a very personal decision to make. For many people, It's their only choice to end suffering and pain. And I wish that no one had to go through with doctor-assisted suicide, but sadly, there are people who have to make this decision. If there is one thing I hope you get out of this speech, it is not to judge those who have gone through or are going through doctor-assisted suicide, because you'll never know what that decision is like until you have to make it yourself. Have an open mind when it comes to doctor-assisted suicide. Doctor-assisted suicide should be legal, and that is because doctor-assisted suicide is conditional. Doctor-assisted suicide allows patients to die with dignity, and doctor-assisted suicide is a last resort option. Thank you.